Have you ever looked at your paycheck and thought, I make too much money to still feel this stressed? Because here's the truth. We all thought that more money would fix our problems. And while it will fix a lot of problems, it doesn't automatically create peace. It doesn't erase financial anxiety. It doesn't heal your relationship with money or your money story. It doesn't create a system. And more money on its own doesn't build lasting wealth. Welcome to Money with Sabrina. I'm your host and money coach, Sabrina, and this is the podcast for generational change makers, the women determined to change not only their own financial future, but the legacy for those they leave behind. Each week, we will have honest conversations about money, debt, wealth, spending, investing, and the emotional side of money that nobody likes to talk about. Because money isn't just numbers. It's about the beliefs, habits, and systems behind them. My goal isn't to help you be perfect with your money. It's to help you build a system that you trust so that your finances feel less overwhelming and more empowering. So if this is you, open your notes app, get a pen and paper, and let's build wealth without shame, guilt, or financial overwhelm. So today we are talking about living paycheck to paycheck. But first, let's talk about what it means. Let's define what it means to live paycheck to paycheck so we're all on the same page. Living paycheck to paycheck in its simplest form is you are spending more money than you're bringing in every single month. Your income does not match your necessities. At its core, after your needs are taken care of, there is no money left for wants. If this is you, then you are living paycheck to paycheck. This isn't always a reflection of poor budgeting. For many, many Americans, it is simply the result of wages not keeping up with the pace of rising cost of living and inflation. But for some of us, this is a cash flow issue. And the defining characteristic of someone who is living paycheck to paycheck is the lack of safety net. And this is why I talk so much about the emergency fund, because without your emergency fund, you are highly vulnerable to unexpected life expenses. One unexpected expense will have you taking out a payday loan. Living paycheck to paycheck can happen at any income level. If you are completely unable to cover your bills without the arrival of your next paycheck, then you might be in a paycheck to paycheck cycle. A very simple stress test is to ask yourself, if your paycheck stopped today, how long would you be able to cover your bills? If you can't afford to miss one paycheck without turning to your credit cards or missing a bill, then you are living paycheck to paycheck. And depending on the research that you read, between 68 and 70% of Americans report living paycheck to paycheck. And 1 in 10 Americans who are making over $100,000 a year are using 100% of their paycheck to cover their living expenses. So that means 1 in 10 people making over $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. The number of Black and brown women who are living paycheck to paycheck is way too high. And I'm on a personal mission to lower that number. Money is deeply emotional. We spend the way that we do because of some deep-seated psychological reasons. You're saying, Sabrina, how do I break this cycle? There is literally not enough money coming in. I hear you. So here's how you break the cycle. Number one, you have to know your numbers. You need to know exactly what's coming in and what's going out every single month. I am always shocked when I have conversations with my friends and they don't know how much money they bring home. I'm that friend that's going to talk about money. I'm going to talk about money all the time. I'm going to ask you how much money you make. I'm going to tell you how much money I make. I think we need to normalize talking about our finances. And I'm always shocked at how many people I encounter in real life who don't know how much money they make. Like, they know what the number that HR is reporting to the IRS. They know the number on their offer letter. They don't know, after taxes and deductions, how much is hitting their account every single month. If you don't know how much money you're making, how do you know how much you're spending? You've got to know your numbers. How much money hits your account every single month? Your fixed expenses. You have to know how much is going out every single month. So fixed expenses are defined as those expenses that happen every single month, no matter what. I like to also categorize fixed expenses as, if you don't pay that bill, somebody's going to call you. Somebody's going to knock on your door. Somebody's going to ask you about their money. Because oftentimes I see when we're doing budget audit, they will list things like Netflix and Hulu and their nail shop as fixed expenses. Those are not fixed expenses. Those are variable expenses. Those are expenses that are based on your usage. If you don't use them, you don't have a bill. If you don't pay Netflix, they might send you an email about it, but no one's going to call you. No one's going to send you to collections for it. Those fall under your variable expenses. So you need to know your fixed expenses. A really good way to think about fixed expenses is if you lost your job today, what are the things that absolutely would stay in your budget? Those are your fixed expenses. Then we're talking about your variable expenses. This is your groceries, your eating out, your gas. This is where your nails, your hair, those kinds of things go in your variable expenses. This is the area of our budget where we have the most control. If money is short, you can cut back usually in one of these areas. So I always like to separate them on the budget because we want to have a clear picture of what our needs versus our wants are. While groceries and eating out and gas, all of those, some of those are wants, but you can control those expenses if you needed to. Now, if you've not been tracking your expenses, I already hear your brain. You don't know how much you're spending in those areas. Couple of ways you can figure it out. Number one, you can pull your bank statements, pull your last 3 months of bank statement, and you can comb through them. A lot of times your bank will give you, if you log into like your credit card statement or your bank statement, they'll give you a sort of breakdown of how much you've spent in certain areas. This is not always the most accurate breakdown because a lot of times I find that my bank miscategorizes expenses. However, if you have no idea what you've been spending, it's a decent place to start. But this is why tracking your spending is so important, particularly at the beginning of your personal finance journey. And you can use anything to track your expenses. You can track them on a pen and paper. You can use the Notes app in your phone. I love Monarch Money and You Need a Budget. Those are my two favorite tracking apps on the market, but they do have a cost. And if you are struggling, that might not be realistic for you. I also have a budget template that I created that has a place for you to track your expenses. That template is a one-time purchase, and then you can use it forever and ever, ever after that. Doesn't matter what you use. I don't care what you're using, but you need to be tracking your expenses so that you can have an idea of what's going in and what's going out. If you cannot answer, where did my last paycheck go? This is probably the problem that you need to solve. Start here, write everything down, and when you're finished, take a look at what you wrote down. Do an assessment. Did you spend everything? Did you have a few dollars left? Are there places in your budget where you can pare back your spending? And then once you know your numbers, then you can start to build a spending plan. Before you get paid, you decide on the front end, where's your money going? You give every single dollar a job. And I want you to prioritize this by asking yourself, what do I need this money to do for me between now and my next payday? Your essentials, so your living expenses, your minimum debt, your savings, and then your lifestyle spending. Once you have your spending plan, then you can start to build your buffer. This is where the magic happens. This is where the paycheck to paycheck cycle starts to break, having a little bit of wiggle room in your budget. Now, you don't need to start with a full 6-month emergency fund. Start small and build up, especially if you're building the muscle of savings. If you've never saved anything before, start with a $100 goal, then go to a $500, then an extra $1,000, and then 1 month of expenses. And then you can slowly build up to 2, 3, 4 until you get to that full 6 months of expenses. The buffer will prevent you from relying on credit cards when life happens. Number 4, stop spending money that you haven't received. So many people are pre-spending their paycheck. They're spending money that they haven't even received yet on credit cards. I call this the credit card float. And how you know that you are on the credit card float is ask yourself, could you pay your credit card bill today in full and still have money to live until your next paycheck? If the answer to that question is no, then you are on the credit card float. And that, my friend, is a very slippery slope. And that is contributing to keeping you in the paycheck to paycheck cycle. One of my favorite budgeting apps is the You Need a Budget app. There is a steep learning curve to that app. However, if you can get past that learning curve, it is fantastic for changing this one habit alone, because that app forces you to only budget the money that you have in your account today. You cannot forward project and spend money that you are coming in, a month, 2 weeks from now. Number 5 is to increase the gap between your income and your spending. And there are two primary levers that you can use here. Number one, the obvious, is to reduce your expenses, taking a critical look at your expenses and deciding what things you can go without. Now, the reality is there's only so much that we can cut back in expenses. We live in a world where we have to buy things, right? You have to pay rent, you have to have groceries, you have to pay your house payment. There's only so much realistically that you can cut back. Number two is increasing your income, raises, promotions, having those conversations with your boss about how you can earn more money, but also changing jobs. I know that we are in a finicky place in the economy right now where changing jobs is a little bit scary. But if you are in a more settled industry, if you work in an industry that maybe isn't as affected by what's happening in the economy, consider changing jobs. Most jobs are going to give you between a 2, maybe a 6% pay increase every year. And currently that's just not keeping up with inflation, let alone giving you room to build wealth. But if you can change jobs, you can negotiate a 20%, 30% increase for yourself. I had a client last year who changed jobs and she got a $25,000 increase from her old job. So changing jobs is the best, fastest, most efficient way to increase your income. Then there's side hustles, second jobs, that kind of things, but increasing your income. And I think for all of us, there comes a point in our personal finance journey where increasing our income is really the only lever that we have to pull, because you can only pull back so much in your expenses. Okay, number 6 is reducing high interest debt. If you are carrying high interest debt, so if you are not paying off that credit card in full every single month and you are carrying a balance over until the next month, that interest rate on that credit card is most likely robbing you blind. I have a client that I am working with, and when we started working together, she had about $26,000 in credit card debt at a 19% interest rate. We did the math on that. Her minimum payment on that credit card was $500 every single month. Of that $500 she was paying to the credit card company, $404 of that was going to interest. So she was chipping away at this huge boulder with a tiny little toothpick because the interest was eating up all of her payment. So if you are carrying high interest debt, you have got to knock that debt out as fast as and as aggressively as possible. And I will do an entire episode on how to approach debt payoff. Number 7 is to review your money weekly. Spend 15 minutes every single week looking at your money. If you're sticking your head in the sand and you're not looking at your budget, you're not changing it. Ask yourself what came in, what went out, what's due next, and what needs adjusting every single week. Living paycheck to paycheck isn't always an income problem. For many people who are earning 6 figures and still feel broke, it's because they don't have a system. More income without a plan creates bigger bills. That's it. The goal isn't to simply earn more, it's to build a system that lets every paycheck move forward instead of helping you survive until the next one. Before we go, I want you to remember that building wealth isn't about being perfect. It's about making one intentional decision after another. Every dollar you give a purpose, every habit you change, every conversation you have about money is another step towards becoming the generational change maker that your family has been waiting for. If today's episode helped you think differently about your money, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with somebody who also needs to rewrite their money story. And if you're looking for more support, tools, or practical strategies, come join me on Instagram at Saprina, Saprina. It's also linked in the show notes. Or visit my website. I'd love to work with you. Coaching, I have a few spots one-on-one available. But until next time, you are not just building wealth for today, my friend. You are building a legacy for tomorrow. See you in the next episode.